When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. That's the part that surprised me the most. There was no explosion of tears, no shaking hands, just a quiet, strange calm that settled over me like a blanket of snow. She stood there in the doorway of what I had come to think of as our kitchen, her arms crossed, her words hanging in the air between us like icicles. "I think it's best if you go back to your own place now, Mom." She called me Mum. She always did, and for years that single word had filled my heart. But in that moment, it sounded hollow, a title for a role that was no longer needed. I looked past her, through the living room window. My son, David, was outside, pretending to be very busy raking leaves that had already been collected. He couldn't meet my eyes. He hadn't been able to for weeks. His back was to the house, a picture of a man willing the earth to swallow him whole. And I smiled, a small, sad lift at the corners of my mouth, not at her, not at him, but at myself, at the woman I had been for the last 5 years, the woman who believed that being needed was the same as being loved, the woman who poured every ounce of her being into this family, this house, these people, only to be told, politely and finally, that the pouring was over. I nodded, just once. "All right," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "I'll start packing." I turned away from her, and that's when I felt it. Not the sharp stab of betrayal I had braced for, but a deep, weary ache, a hollowing out. For so long I had been waiting for a thank you that never quite came, waiting for an acknowledgement, and later waiting for an apology for the slow, quiet ways I was being pushed to the margins of their lives. I thought I needed that apology to heal. I was certain of it. The words, "I'm sorry," felt like the only key that could unlock me from this hurt. But life, in its quiet, stubborn way, was about to show me otherwise. It all started with such hope, such pure, simple joy. David was my only child. His father, my Michael, passed away when David was just 15. It was just the two of us after that, navigating a world that felt too big and too quiet. We became a tight-knit team of two. I worked long hours at the local library to put him through university. He studied hard, became a kind, thoughtful man, an engineer. He was my greatest pride. Then he brought Sarah home. She was all bright energy and clever opinions, a graphic designer with a laugh that could fill a silent room. I saw how she looked at David, with a love that was both fierce and gentle, and I saw how my son came alive around her. My heart, which had held a small, permanent space of worry for him, felt a sense of peace. He had found his person. Their wedding was a blur of happiness. I sold our old, too-big family home a year later and bought a cozy little apartment. It was my fresh start, a place with just my things, my rhythms. I was content. Then Lucas arrived, my grandson. The moment David called me, his voice cracked with emotion, saying, "Mom, you're a grandma." I felt a love so sudden and so vast, it stole my breath. When I first held him, this tiny, wrinkled creature in a blue blanket, I whispered a promise to Michael. "Look at what we made. I'll look after him." And that promise became my purpose. When Sarah went back to work part-time, the question arose about childcare. They were looking at expensive nurseries, their faces drawn with worry. "Let me," I said one Sunday over lunch, "let me come and stay just for the weekdays. I can look after Lucas, you can save the money, and I'd get to be with my grandson every day." The look of relief on their faces was my reward. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, are you sure? It's so much to ask." "It's not asking," I said, meaning it with my whole soul. "It's a gift." So I packed a suitcase. I moved into their spare room, the one they'd painted a soft yellow. "For you, Mom." My apartment was shut up, a place I'd return to on weekends, though often I didn't even do that. Their home became my world. And what a beautiful world it was. My days had a rhythm woven around Lucas, his morning gurgles, the slow, sleepy afternoons, the bedtime stories. I cooked, not just meals for the baby, but proper dinners, David's favorite stews, Sarah's preferred lemon pasta. I found a rhythm in their laundry, learning the particular ways Sarah liked the towels folded. I'd have the house tidy, a pot simmering when they walked in, tired from their days. Their gratitude was my sunlight. "Mom, you're a lifesaver," David would say, kissing my cheek. "This is amazing, thank you," Sarah would sigh, sinking into a chair. For years, it worked. Lucas called me Nana, his first real word. We built blanket forts in the living room. We planted sunflower seeds in the garden that grew taller than he was. I was not a visitor. I was a pillar of the household, the quiet, reliable engine that let their vibrant, busy lives run smoothly. I saw the small strains in their marriage, the tired bickering over bills or chores, and I'd gently step in. "You two go out for a dinner. I've got Lucas." I'd mediate sometimes. "David, she just needs you to listen." "Sarah, he's trying his best." I thought I was helping, gluing the little cracks before they could spread. I didn't see then that I was also building a wall made of my own usefulness, my own constant presence, a wall that one day they would need to climb over to find each other again. The first sign was so small I almost missed it. Lucas was about 4. We were drawing at the kitchen table. He was telling a long, winding story about his drawing, a monster truck with wings. Sarah came home from work, leaned down to kiss him, and said, "What a fantastic rocket, sweetheart." "It's not a rocket, Mummy," Lucas said with the 4-year-old's profound exasperation. "It's a monster truck with wings. Nana knew." He said it so casually. Nana knew. Sarah's smile stayed on her face, but it changed. It didn't reach her eyes anymore. She looked at his drawing, then at me. "Of course she did," Sarah said, her voice light. "Nana knows everything." She went upstairs to change, and I brushed the moment off. A long day at work for her, that's all. But it was a tiny pebble dropped into the still pond of our lives. I didn't know it then, but the ripples were just beginning to spread. The pebble became a stone a few months later. It was about dinner. I had made a shepherd's pie, David's comfort food. Sarah was on a new health kick, something about whole foods and clean eating. She looked at the table, at the golden, buttery mashed potato crust, and her face fell. "Oh, Mom, that looks rich." "It's just the way David likes it," I said defensively. "I know," she said, serving herself a very small portion. "It's just, we're trying to be more mindful, you know? For Lucas, too." David, caught in the middle, piled his plate high. "It's fine, Sarah. One meal won't hurt." "It's not one meal, David," she said, her voice tight. "It's the fried breakfasts, the sugary snacks for Lucas. It's a pattern." The kitchen, usually a place of warmth, felt suddenly cold. I had cooked this meal as an act of love. Now it felt like an act of sabotage. I want to help," I said, my voice small. "I know," Sarah said, softening, but the tension remained. "And we're so grateful. It's just, maybe we could align more on the meal plans." Alignment, that was a new word in our home. It buzzed around after that, a persistent fly. We needed to be aligned on parenting, aligned on house rules. I started to feel like a subordinate being gently, firmly managed. The dialogues were never fights. They were quiet, polite corrections. "Mom, we're letting him choose his own clothes now, even if they clash." "Mom, we've decided no sweets before dinner. At all." "Mom, we'd prefer if you didn't give him a bath tonight. We want it to be our special time." Every "we" felt like a door closing gently in my face. We have decided. We would prefer. We are his parents. And where did that leave me? The helper? The nanny? The guest? David became quieter. When Sarah would make one of these gentle corrections, he'd stare at his plate or suddenly remember something urgent on his phone. He didn't want to take sides. I understood that, but his silence felt like a choice, and it wasn't me he was choosing. One evening, I overheard them talking in the living room. The door was barely ajar. I was coming down from putting Lucas to bed. "Just feels like she's always here, David," Sarah was saying, her voice a strained whisper. "We have no space, no time to just be a family, the three of us." "She's a huge help," David mumbled. "She is, but Lucas is in school now. He doesn't need full-time care. And I need to run my own home, my way. I feel judged all the time. The way I fold the laundry is wrong. The way I play with Lucas is too noisy. It's her way or it's the wrong way." I stopped on the stairs, my hand on the banister, frozen. "She doesn't mean it like that," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. It was the voice of a tired man pleading for peace. "It doesn't matter what she means, David. It's how it feels. This is our house. Ours. Our house." The words were a physical blow. I crept back upstairs, my heart pounding. I sat on the edge of the spare bed in my room and looked at the yellow walls that now felt like the walls of a very nice, very loving prison. I cried that night, silent tears into the pillow Michael had bought me years ago. I wasn't trying to take over. I was trying to help. Why couldn't she see that? Every adjustment I made, every bite of criticism I swallowed was for them, for this family. I began to wait for the apology. It became a quiet obsession. Surely Sarah would realize how much she'd hurt me. She would come to me one morning over coffee and say, "Mom, I'm sorry about last week. I was stressed. We are so lucky to have you." And David would hug me and say, "Yeah, Mom, this is your home too." But the apology never came. Instead, the space around me grew wider. Conversations would stop when I entered a room. Weekend plans would be made and I'd hear about them only as an afterthought. "Oh, we're going to the zoo on Saturday, Mom. You can have the day to yourself." To myself, in their house, where I was living but no longer belonging. The emotional breaking point, when it came, wasn't a thunderclap. It was a slow, cold rain that finally soaked me to the bone. It was Lucas's 7th birthday party, a big, chaotic, wonderful affair in the garden. Dozens of children screaming, a bouncy castle, the smell of grilled burgers and cake. I had been in my element for days, baking the cake, stringing up banners, preparing all the party food. The party was in full swing. I was in the kitchen refilling a pitcher of lemonade when I saw them through the window. Sarah, David, and Lucas were standing by the cake table. A friend of theirs, a woman with a camera, was gesturing to them. "Okay, family of 3, big smiles." Family of 3. They huddled together, David's arm around Sarah, Sarah's hand on Lucas's shoulder. They beamed. A perfect, beautiful, complete unit. And I, the architect of this very party, the maker of the cake they were smiling behind, was on the outside, a spectator, the help. The friend took several photos. Beautiful, just gorgeous. Now one with Grandma. Sarah turned, her eyes scanning the garden. She didn't see me at the window. She called out, "Mom? Where's Mom?" David shrugged. "Around here somewhere." They called for me, but in that moment, I couldn't move. The pain was a cold, hard knot in my chest. The narrative was so clear. The family photo was the important one. The one with Grandma was the add-on, the afterthought. I finally composed myself and went out, forcing a smile onto my face. "Here I am." We took the photo. My smile felt carved from wood. That night, after the chaos had died down and Lucas was asleep in a sugar coma, I sat at the cleaned-up kitchen table with Sarah. David was already snoring on the sofa. We were both tired. "It was a lovely party, Sarah," I said. "It was. Thanks for all your help, Mom, really." There was a silence. It was my chance. Maybe if I was just honest, gentle. "You know," I began, my voice cautious, When I saw you taking that photo earlier, just the three of you, it felt a little like I searched for the right unaccusing word, like I was on the outside looking in. Sarah looked at me. She didn't look guilty or apologetic. She looked resolved, tired but resolved. She took a slow breath. "Mom," she said, "we need to talk." And she began to speak. She didn't raise her voice. Her words were measured, careful, like she'd rehearsed them. She talked about Lucas growing up, about him needing independence, about them needing to parent him without a third voice. She talked about their marriage needing space to breathe. She said they were so grateful for everything I'd done, but that the season had changed. "It's time," she said, her eyes meeting mine, clear and unblinking. "It's time for you to go back to your own life, to your apartment. We'll manage just fine. Lucas will visit all the time." She made it sound so reasonable, so logical, a natural progression. But all I heard was the verdict. My services were no longer required. The love I thought was unconditional had a condition after all, my usefulness. "I think it's best if you go back to your own place now, Mom." That's when I smiled, that strange, calm smile, because the waiting was over. The hope for an apology evaporated in that moment. The fantasy of her seeing my hurt and making it right just dissolved. This was the clarity, brutal and clean. "All right," I said, "I'll start packing." The packing took 2 days. It was a funeral for the woman I had been. Each item from the yellow room, a framed picture of Lucas and me, my favorite tea mug, the extra soft blanket I used, was a relic from a life that was ending. David was a ghost during those days. He'd try to help, his face pale with misery. "Mom, please don't be angry." "I'm not angry, David," I said, and it was true. I was past anger. I was in the deep blue sea of sadness. It's complicated. Sarah feels—" "I know what Sarah feels," I said softly, cutting him off. "It's okay." It wasn't okay, but blaming him would only anchor me to the pain. His guilt was his to carry. I had my own bags to lift. The hardest was Lucas. He was confused. "Why are you taking your things, Nana? Are you going on holiday?" I knelt down, my eyes level with his, my heart breaking. "I'm going back to my own little house, sweetheart, just like you have your own room. But I'm just down the road. You can visit me anytime. We'll have special Nana days." He hugged me, a fierce, tight hug. "I'll come every day." "Not every day," I whispered into his hair, smelling his little boy scent, "but lots of days." The day I left, it was raining, a soft gray drizzle that matched the world inside my chest. My little car was packed. David loaded the last suitcase, his shoulders slumped. Sarah stood on the front step, holding an umbrella. "Thank you for everything, Mom. Really." I just nodded. There was nothing left to say. I got into my car. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I couldn't. The drive to my apartment was a blur. I hadn't lived there properly in 5 years. When I opened the door, the air was still and stale. It smelled of dust and absence. I stood in the middle of the silent living room, surrounded by my boxes, and for the first time since she told me to leave, I cried. Great, heaving sobs that came from a place so deep and lonely I didn't know I possessed it. I cried for the loss of my purpose. I cried for the family portrait I wasn't in. I cried for the empty, echoing space of my own life. For weeks, I moved through the apartment like a sleepwalker. Lucas visited, and those afternoons were islands of light. But when he left, the silence was deafening. I missed the hum of their household desperately. I missed knowing what they were having for dinner. I felt obsolete, a clock that had stopped telling the right time. The apology, I still waited for it. I'd check my phone, half hoping for a long text from Sarah or a call from David saying we made a mistake. It never came. Their lives, from what I could glean from David's brief calls, went on smoothly. They were fine without me. That was the salt in the wound. They didn't need me. And then a strange thing began to happen. In the heavy quiet, I started to hear my own thoughts again, thoughts that had been drowned out for years by the noise of their lives. What do I like for breakfast? What do I want to watch on TV? Do I even like this wallpaper? The first time I cooked a meal just for myself, a simple omelet, I ate it at my own small table, looking out at my own view of a maple tree, and it tasted good. It was my omelet, with the ingredients I liked. Slowly, tentatively, I began to rebuild. Not a life around someone else's axis, but my own. I joined a book club at the library where I used to work. I started taking long walks, not to anywhere, just to move and think. I repotted the plants I'd neglected. I even, on a whim, signed up for a pottery class. My hands, so used to folding others' laundry and wiping a child's face, learned to shape cool, wet clay. I made a friend. Her name is Eleanor, a widow like me. We met in the pottery class. We have tea, we talk about our children, but we also talk about politics and bad movies and the strange dreams we have. She doesn't need me for anything, and I don't need her. We just enjoy each other's company. One afternoon, about 6 months after I'd left, David and Lucas came for a visit. Lucas ran straight to the shelf where I kept the toys I'd bought for here. "Play with me, Nana." David hovered. He looked around. "The place looks nice, Mom. Different." "It feels different," I said, and smiled. It was a real smile this time. He helped me make tea while Lucas played. In the quiet of my kitchen, he finally spoke. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice thick, "for how it happened. It was clumsy and hurtful. I was a coward." I put my hand on his arm. "It's all right, David." "It's not. Sarah, she's happier now. We are better. But that doesn't make it right, what we did to you." He wasn't offering the apology I had waited for. He was offering his own, and it was enough. It was his to give. A few weeks later, Sarah called. She asked if she could come over, just her. My heart did a little flip of anxiety. Was this it? The long-awaited words? She arrived with a bunch of tulips. We sat in my living room. She was nervous. "I wanted to see your place," she said. "It's really you." We made stilted conversation. Then she said, "Lucas talks non-stop about his Nana days. He loves it here. I love having him." A long pause. She twirled her wedding ring around her finger. "I know it was hard," she said finally, "the way we did it. I've thought about it a lot. I was so focused on what I thought our family needed, I didn't consider you as a person with your own needs. I saw you as part of the machinery of our lives, and that was wrong. It wasn't an 'I'm sorry for hurting you.' It was something else, an acknowledgement of her own perspective, her own failure to see. It was more honest than any forced apology could have been." "I understand," I said, and for the first time, I truly did. I saw the young woman trying to be the mother, the wife, the keeper of her own home, feeling perpetually overshadowed. I wasn't the villain in her story, and she wasn't the villain in mine. We were just two women, loving the same people, getting tangled up in that love. "I'm glad you and David are doing well," I added, and meant it. She looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw no defensiveness in her eyes, just a tired kind of relief. "We are, and I'm glad you are too. You seem, well." I was. That was the revelation. I was well. The hollow ache had been filled, not by an apology or by their renewed need for me, but by my own self. Piece by piece, I had filled it with quiet mornings, with the smell of clay, with the sound of my own laughter with a friend, with the piece of a life that was truly, authentically mine. Life never showed me the apology I thought I needed. Instead, it showed me something far more valuable: myself. I thought my value was tied to a kitchen, to a child's schedule, to being the irreplaceable core of someone else's world. When that was taken away, I felt worthless. But the truth was, my value was never in those things. It was in me, in my capacity to love, to adapt, to learn, and to grow, even when the growing was painful. The moral of this story isn't about who was right or wrong. It's about the beautiful, heartbreaking truth that love sometimes has to change its shape to survive. A mother's love for her child must learn to let go. A child's love for their parent must find new expressions, and the love between in-laws, that's a delicate bridge that needs space to stand strong. I see my family now, but from the riverbank, not from within the current. I am a cherished visitor in their home. I am Nana, who has exciting sleepovers and makes a mess with glitter glue. My relationship with Sarah is peaceful, respectful. It may never be deeply close, but it is free of resentment. That is a gift we both had to give each other. And David, he visits more often now, just to talk. Without the weight of me living in his house, we can simply be mother and son again. We talk about his work, about my pottery, about memories of Michael. It's easier. The greatest lesson was this: waiting for someone else to heal your hurt is like waiting for a different season to paint your garden. It keeps you stuck in the cold. The healing, the painting, the growing, it's work you have to do yourself, in your own soil, under your own sky. I look out at my maple tree now, its leaves turning gold. I have a vase of tulips on the table, the one Sarah brought. I have a lumpy, lopsided bowl I made in my pottery class. I have the quiet. And in that quiet, I have a peace I never knew when my days were full of noise and purpose. I thought I needed her apology to move on. But life, and its gentle, relentless wisdom, showed me that what I really needed was to find my own way home, to myself. And I did.